Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for coming on a Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I've watched several shows and a couple friends of mine, Nick and Charles, have been on, and I've seen some other shows you've done. So glad to finally make it.
Yeah, it's a small world with us finance people here on LinkedIn, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so why don't we get started like by you introducing yourself first? I know you're a CFP and a financial advisor, and then so yeah, I mean it's best if you actually yeah. Mm-hmm,
Great. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
So I'm a financial advisor. I own Paradigm Wealth Partners in Knoxville, Tennessee. There's about four other advisors in our office. And I'm a CFP, so we do holistic financial planning, trying to look at everything. My focus is on um, young professionals, so usually people 35 to 45 or 35 to 50. So yeah, that's I'm an author. I host a podcast. I have a wife. I have two kids. I have a dog. So that's my
perfect.
story in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah. I have two dogs, so those are my hairy kids.
Yeah, yeah, they're a lot of work, aren't they?
Actually, two dogs isn't that much more work than one. They actually make it easy because they play with each other. Then they don't bug you as much, and then they bully each other, and then so I don't have to entertain them as much.
I got one dog and he whines constantly. So exhausting.
Depends on the dog.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
So let's start with okay. You said you have a podcast. So tell me more. Like, how did you get started with podcasting?
So it's something that I've wanted to do for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was always nervous about what equipment do you use? How do you edit? What do you talk about? And late last year, late 2019, I basically decided that I had to do it. So um, I paid a podcasting firm that helped me launch the podcast. And so that was really the first forcing mechanism. I don't know if you've seen a lot of what I post, but I talk a lot about forcing mechanisms, small steps that make you move forward. And so by hiring
Mm-hmm.
another firm and paying for that, then I had hard dollars invested that made me move forward. But
Mm-hmm.
the beauty is they told me what equipment I need. They do the editing, and so it took a lot of the stress and burden off of me when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to what's next.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of what I've just seen other advisors do it, talk about money and personal finance, and get kind of their voice out there. The other thing that was really hard was just being vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
coming out there and saying, this is my opinion on money, this is the way I think about things. And surprisingly, you're worried about everyone thinking that you're stupid or your idea is dumb, or that's not the way you should do it, you should do it this other way. And reality, that doesn't happen. Most people are very, very supportive, even if they disagree with you. It's usually in a way that is constructive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it's just a way for me to, similar to you and this show, is to get out there and talk and have these conversations about money and the way other advisors are working. And so, it's kind of a passion project, and I'm going into year two.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so you're saying how how are you getting the feedback? Are you doing the podcasting live and you're recording it, or like you just do it like directly record, not live? Because the way I have a podcast as well on iTunes and everywhere. It's called Life and Money with Christine Tay. Usually it's a conversion, like when we do our live. So I take the audio and then upload that to I what am I using? Oh, Anchor, and then it just get published everywhere. So that's kind of how I do it. And then we're live right now to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So now might as well just use the audio. But I'm kind of behind on a lot of episodes, so I still have a bunch to upload. So how are you doing your podcasting?
Yeah, same thing. So, I when I started out, they recommended I record via Zoom. So essentially, I'm hosting a Zoom call and recording the file that way. It's just me talking in, recording the screen or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
then I submit to them, the editors, the producers, I guess is what you would call them, the
Mm-hmm.
file, and they actually edit it and make it into an actual podcast. So I'm just recording the raw file,
Mm-hmm.
which is what helps kind of overcome. Um, what equipment do we need? How do I edit? The time it takes to do that. And so I did that throughout probably the first 3 quarters of this year. And now I've started using live streaming as a way that I can now publish my same podcast live to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I'm not on LinkedIn Live yet, and still, there's a queue you got to go through and get accepted and all that. So I'm probably somewhere deep in the queue. But I can still take that live stream and send that audio file to this the same way you've done it.
Yep. Download the audio file right over in StreamYard. Otherwise, they're gonna delete for you after 3 weeks or something. So
yeah. It's a pretty short time.
Yep. Okay, Nick is on. It's like, hey everyone, happy holidays. Great to see two of my friends in one place. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Nick, how you doing, buddy?
All right. So let's talk about, okay, so you are I think you are one of the very few advisors who actually wrote a book that have been on my show. So what inspired you? You're doing podcasting and you wrote books. So what inspired you to write books? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so here it is. So I don't know if you can see it. So
oh yeah, there. What the Wealth, a guide to financial clarity for professionals and families. Okay, when did you write it?
I wrote it last year. I published it in January, about the same time that I launched the podcast. My podcast is also titled "What the Wealth." It can be found on iTunes and Spotify, everywhere. So the same thing. I had a lot of things that I wanted to say. I had been blogging, and I wanted to write a book, kind of a bucket list type of item. And again, worried about how do you publish a book. And the same sort of thought process that comes through when you're trying to make a podcast. How do you do it? It's just a little different. The editors, how do you publish on Amazon? How do you format it correctly? There's a lot that goes into it. And so, I just wanted to be a published author. It's a kind of an accomplishment that no one can take away from you. I thought I was going to write one book. And this book is more about personal finance and money 101 and budgeting and having conversations with your loved ones or significant others about money and IRAs, Roth IRAs, all of that stuff. And so I think it was just something that I wanted to do, to say that I wrote a book, and I was only going to write one. And here I am writing my second book. So I don't know when I'll publish it, but it's maybe a little bit of an addiction at this point.
That's good. So how long did it took you to write the first book?
Probably, I would say, I don't remember exactly, 9 to 12 months. Probably 6 to 9 months was probably in the actual writing process and writing and editing and all of that back and forth. The hardest part is actually getting your ideas onto the page in book form, kind of chapter. So, you want to create kind of this mind map that will kind of outline what you want to talk about. And then the last 3 months was finalizing cover designs, one last pass on editing, making sure that the graphic designing was done, getting the template off of Amazon to make sure, you get the right cover size. So just a lot of the ISBN number, just a lot of little things that people don't think of.
Got it. So I'm just curious, okay, for writers, how much money are you able to make though? How does that work in terms of the profit and stuff like that?
Yeah, so not a lot. I didn't write it to make money to be an author. I wrote it more for kind of legacy. I dedicated this book to my daughter, so I wrote it just for kind of legacy and just to again say that I did it. I've probably made on the book, I don't know, maybe $1,000 or so. I probably have 12,000 in it. The good thing is though, it's a fixed cost. And so every time someone orders from Amazon, I'm getting paid something. So I will probably at one point fully recoup the money, but it just takes a little time. So Amazon charges there's a royalty, there's a minimum you have to charge. They take a cut. So, I'm selling my book for I think it's $15.97 right now on Amazon. My cut of that is about $6.50. I don't remember exactly, but it's
Oh,
close to $6.50. So it's, it's not too bad. Again, I'm
yeah.
not going to get rich. I'm not going to
Yeah.
be a New York Times bestseller, but I was an Amazon.
Unless you become a New York Times bestseller one day.
That's true.
and and Nick says, not too late for the perfect stocking stuffer. What's the wealth?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
All right. So I mean, it's kind of good. So do you feel like things have changed a bit after you wrote the book? Like, what changes have you seen in your career after you wrote that first book?
Um, yeah, I think that as far as the book writing goes, I think I was only going to write one book. What I realized is there's still more that I want to say. And so, yeah, again, I
Mm,
was going to write one book. Now I'm going to write a second book that talks more about retirement and the risks that people face in retirement and how to overcome those risks. So the
mm-hmm.
first one was
Okay.
very personal finance, money 101,
Mm-hmm.
and this one's going to be more risk in retirement. But I found that there was just more that I wanted to say, and the best way to do that, in my opinion, was a sequel to another book. And I can help the most people by writing a book. And so I only have so much capacity in our firm to help
Yeah.
clients on an
Exactly.
individual basis. But through the
Exactly.
podcast, through the book,
Yeah.
and through my blog, I mean, we can help thousands of people. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of the thought.
Got it. Yeah, me too. I'm actually gonna start working on an online course for financial literacy because I mean, there's only so much that we can do on our one-on-one time, and then plus, like, not everyone can afford my coaching, rates. So that's why I'll do the more cheaper online course, and then that will give discount if they buy that, and then they want to do some coaching sessions. So yeah, that's a good idea. So let's talk about retirement. You just mentioned that. So tell us more, like what okay, so let's start with, like, if they're a young professional, which is what your book is about. So how can they start planning for retirement, and also, like, when should they start seriously really consider, like, how they're gonna fund the rest of their retirement, like what, 5 years before retirement? So let's start with, like, how they should start planning their retirement as a young professional. Then when they get closer to retirement, what should they start seriously considering about?
So, my opinion is as soon as possible. So if people should
Mm-hmm.
start in the early 20s trying to stock
Mm-hmm.
money back and save as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people have the mindset that there's going to be plenty of time later to save money. And so between their 22 and 30, they got time to just blow money. But some of the statistics show that the sooner you can start, the more time your money has to compound, the potentially the larger it can be as you get to retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think depending on how people are earning their money, what their income is, there's a lot of variables that go into this. But, we talk a lot about Roth and Roth conversions. We talk a lot about mega backdoor Roth conversions, which would be a technique that's done inside the 401k platform. Surprisingly, I have a lot of conversations with people about estate planning documents. It's something that they take very, very lightly. It's always, well, my significant other is going to get the money, or they're going to inherit this from them, and it's usually not very pressing for them. And so I have to try to change some of these conversations to, what happens if you don't die, but if you're in a position that you can't make a decision, or who would take care of your kids if something happens to you. And so, in my mind, retirement is a lot more than just the money aspect.
Mm-hmm.
It's about living a fulfilling life. And so,
Exactly. Yep.
one of the things that I hate goal planning. Goal planning, it's
Yeah.
very generic. Everybody says you got to have
Mhm.
smart
Mhm.
goals, and the way
Yep.
that I've done it is everyone needs to have a dream. And
Yeah, exactly. I love
there's
that.
a
Yeah.
Cinderella.
Yeah.
My family are big Disney fans. So in the movie
Mhm.
Cinderella, one of the songs says, a dream is a wish that your heart makes. And
Mhm.
and that's really how I feel about kind of planning for finances. So
Mhm.
I don't want to plan for a goal that might be buying a car every 2 years. That's almost a necessity, but
Mhm.
more of a dream. So how do you help someone write a book and create a legacy that way? How do you help them provide their money and for legacy, for philanthropy, for charities? Um, there's life's a whole lot bigger than just us and our ecosystem and our echo chamber. And so how can we really do some dream planning more than
Mhm.
goal planning?
I love that. I love that. Yeah, like for like it's not about go like when my clients like sometimes they always wonder, oh, do I have enough for retirement? So I always ask them, how do you envision your retirement? What inspires you? Then that kind of usually motivates them. Like for me, like I want a simple life. I don't want kids. I moved here to Vegas, so my cost of living will be down. So it's like I kind of just want to take it easy too. And then like that's kind of how I like my retirement to look like, which is kind of now I'm kind of pre-retired, and then like like and just traveling. Well, when COVID is up, I do want to retire. I do want to travel all over the country and world. So
Yeah.
awesome. I love that. I love that approach. So okay, so when you're young, so what do you recommend usually for people to start saving for retirement? Is it just 401k, Roth, and then is there anything else?
Yeah, so I'm a big advocate of HSAs, health savings accounts.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to have a certain type of health insurance to qualify for those. But the beauty of those is you get, pre-tax contribution. So it's a tax deduction when you make the contribution to your HSA. It can grow tax-free, and then you can take the money out, or it grows tax deferred, is what I should say. And
Hmm.
then if you take the money out for qualified health expenses, then it comes out tax free. So you really get
Hmm.
a triple whammy or triple threat of tax planning.
Yep,
So
exactly.
that's really high priority for me. Roths are really high priority for me. Roth
Hmm.
conversions are really high. Uh,
Hmm.
how much should you save? It kind of depends on your goals. If you want to retire early, there's a big fire movement, financially independent, retire early
Hmm.
right
Hmm.
now. You probably need to be saving 30, 40, 50, 60% of your salary to
Hmm.
retire early, because you're going to have a big health expense if you
Hmm.
retire at 50 and you can't get on Medicare till 65. So
Hmm.
that's a big portion of it. And then people that may want to live in a more traditional retirement where um, you retire at 60 or 65 or 70, more along the Social Security time frame, then maybe they can save a little bit less, but they still need to be probably saving 10 to 15% of their income into some sort of vehicle. And there's kind of a bucket strategy of having a non-qualified or just a post-tax investment account, pre-tax, which may be like a 401k or an IRA, and then a Roth account. So you have kind of all three buckets of money to utilize
Hmm.
depending on how tax laws may change. And not necessarily in the next year, but 30, 40,
Hmm.
50 years from now.
Hmm. So when do you recommend clients to start doing the Roth conversion? Like they have they have IRA to convert that, or for people I think who doesn't have a traditional IRA, makes it easy for them because they can just do, well, for the high earner they do post tax and convert it right away, right? But
Correct.
sometimes people do have traditional IRA because they do roll over to their IRA. So when do you recommend them to start like converting it?
Um, I think it just depends on the scenario, but I have some young professional clients that are 30, 35 right now, and we just methodically do, you know, over like a 5 or 10 year period based on how it impacts their taxes. But,
Exactly.
you know, it's easier to convert um, now when the balance is potentially smaller than 20 years from now when you don't know what
Yeah.
taxes are going to be, and the value of the account's probably much higher.
Yep. Yep.
So I
Hmm.
guess long way to say it would be probably the sooner the better, but it also depends on your tax scenario and some of your dreams, like I discussed.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you don't want to be hit with RMD, right? That's 70 and a half. It's kind of weird, like how the tax rule is right now. You start the year after you turn 70 and a half. Why do they even have to put this and a half years old there?
Well, and so that got changed at the end of 2018. Now it's 72.
Oh,
So
72. Okay, see, I'm not on top of it. Okay, 72 years old.
So
Okay.
now you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the half because you're right. That's real
Good,
weird.
good, good. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So I guess like I think that's what bites people in the back. Like what if you have, I don't know, $10 million in your traditional account and then your RMD, you have to take like, I think it's like a division of whatever, then you have more that you have to take out and then pay for the taxes, right? Because you have to
And
take the required minimum distribution.
there's some planning tips or strategies
Oh,
around.
your volume is far.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So I can, but somehow you sound far.
Can you hear
I'm
me
not
better
sure.
now?
Yeah.
I don't know
There.
what happened, but here I
Oh,
am.
there you go. Okay.
So, there's some planning techniques that are around that. Qualified charitable distributions, donor advised funds. There's some things that you can do to help offset taxes. But if you do those things, it's not money that you get to keep. It's money that goes to
Exactly.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it
So why
helps with
would you want to do
taxes,
that?
but yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's there's pros and cons to everything.
Okay. So when someone's getting closer to retirement, let's say like, I don't know, 2 years beforehand. So how do you want them to like make sure that when they retire, like to arrange their finances? Because the way I was thinking about it, correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think I had another advisor that came online. So there's like three different buckets. So bucket one would be your checking, savings, pretty much your cash. So maybe you can have like 3 years worth or up to 5 years. So that way you can ride the market in case the market goes down. Then you have your other two buckets, the in the individual brokerage or outside retirement or inside retirement, or you can categorize it differently: the non-taxable, which is your Roth and HSA, and then the taxable one, which is your traditional and your individual account. So you have kind of three buckets. Then you can kind of go back and forth between the three of them, and then like you can take out money from your savings, and then when market is up, you can kind of liquidate a portion of the taxable to go to that one. Like how would you kind of structure this? Is for more average, most people, like not to talk about the people who have rental properties or whatever. So for the most average people, they probably have this majority of their money in this format, the three buckets.
Yeah, mine's very similar. I have kind of a three bucket strategy. Most people think of
Mm-hmm.
buckets in terms of short term, intermediate term, and long term. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
0 to 3 years, and 3 to 7,
Mhm,
and 7 and longer. Whatever they're
mhm,
0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to
mhm,
12,
mhm,
whatever. In my mind, I think of it this way. So, I want an emergency fund that can be drawn on to kind of supplement. It's not at risk. 2 or 3 years worth of your retirement income,
mhm,
and then you would have a longer term investment bucket, and as that grows, then you replenish that first bucket,
exactly.
and then the third bucket, what I call an opportunity fund.
Mm,
And so this opportunity fund is a second bucket of money that is actually kind of the third bucket, but it's invested more conservatively. So
mhm,
this bucket can be tapped into if you happen to deplete your emergency fund early for whatever reason. Then you've got
mhm,
this opportunity fund that you can pull money. So in March,
mhm,
when COVID hit and your long term bucket is down
mhm,
significantly, but if you need extra money, you've got this other bucket that you could tap
mhm,
into and leave your long term money alone, so it could rally back up, which is what we've seen.
mhm,
Um, but the opportunity bucket could also be used for, let's just say you want to start a business. And so now it's big enough where you don't have to tap your emergency fund to do it. And you don't
mhm,
have to tap your long term and retirement savings to do it. But you've made
mhm,
these methodical investments in your opportunity fund.
mhm,
So if you wanted to start a business, you could. If you see
mhm,
a rental you want to buy, you could.
mhm.
Whatever the case may be, but it's more fluid money that could go either back to the emergency fund or some other venture.
Yeah. So when you say opportunity fund and it's conservative, like what? Like bonds? Like what are they invested in?
Yeah, so I'm usually in probably like a 30 or 40% equity position and
Um,
60 to 70% bonds. So
okay.
you're going to get some appreciation, but
Mhm.
it's not going to be high growth.
Okay. And these are like individual retirement, I mean, that individual brokerage account, not the
Yeah,
retirement accounts, right? And then you said the long term will be more equity versus bonds because like it's for long term investing. So when you say typically how many percent of stocks do you typically do for long term, like 80, 90%, like just a lot of more equity?
it just depends because I still have people that fall in like a 60-40, like 60%
Mm-hmm.
bonds, 40%, I mean, 60% stock, 40% bonds, or
Mm-hmm.
70-30, or 80-20, or 90-10.
Mm-hmm. Got
Um,
it.
honestly, I think that we are living much longer than people realize, and people don't take enough equity risk. And then when you couple that with rates at 1% or sub 1%, it's going to be very difficult for them to um, continue to earn or generate enough income off of their portfolio when
Mm-hmm.
they're not taking enough equity exposure to replace what they're spending.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your opinion about Social Security? Like when should people take it? Because I know there's three age, right? 62, 65, and 67. So wait, am I making it wrong? 65, 67, or 70, right? There's three age that you can start taking Social Security out.
Well, so you can start taking it at 62.
Oh, yes.
And then
Okay.
there's full retirement age, which it's depending on when you're born. So it starts
Mm-hmm.
at 66 and goes to 67.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the max withdrawal amount ends at 70. So
Mm-hmm.
if you take early at 62 or
Mm-hmm.
63 or 64 or
Mm-hmm.
65, the Social Security penalizes you for taking your Social Security early.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I think that you can make arguments for 62, full retirement age, or 70. I
Mm-hmm.
personally like people taking it at full retirement age, which is, somewhere between 66 and 67. We are again living much longer than people realize. And so if you take it at 62, and
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically you're supposed to get $1,000 at 67, your full retirement age, and you
Mm-hmm.
and you decide to take it at 62, you're going to get
Mm-hmm.
around $750, seven to $750.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've permanently handicapped yourself on a
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed income. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what I try to steer people is work a little bit longer. Even if you semi-retire, maybe you go do a
Mm-hmm.
consultant job, or you go do,
Mm-hmm.
something to just kind of provide a little extra income that doesn't
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
deplete your Social Security as soon.
Yeah. Does your Social Security go down if you work when you start taking Social Security? Let's say you start taking six at full retirement age. Do they cut that down if you're working and then have some income? So it's best to not work then when you take your Social Security?
They do. So between like 62 and 66, or 67, whenever your full retirement is, um, you can make up to a certain dollar amount. And after you make
Mm.
that dollar amount, they start penalizing you on your Social Security $1
Mm-hmm.
for every $2 you earn. And so, yes, if you draw Social Security while you're 62 and you're still working your full-time job, you could be penalized, and then it may not make sense to do
Mm.
that. So
Got it. Yeah.
now, once you turn full retirement age, like I said, somewhere between 66 and 67 for most people, you can earn as much as you want and collect Social Security with no penalty.
Oh, okay.
And so that
Got
does
it.
go a long way.
So that's how they encourage you to actually stay there. And then so you get your Social Security and then you start your Medicare at 65. So then at least, it will be easier on you financially, hopefully, people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're Medicare, I mean, like, don't you have to pay for the Part B to.
Um, yes, you have to pay for, I forget which one it is, but yes, there is a Medicare premium that you have to pay. And
Mm-hmm.
it's based on your income. So however much income you make, uh,
Mm-hmm.
will determine how much premium you pay. So, if you have a higher income, you could be paying $300-400 in Medicare premium.
Mm.
And that's why you want to be careful about some of your retirement planning, because when you sell stocks, or when you make income, or when you
Ah,
have income, it drives that income higher. And
got it.
then, the ramification of that would be higher Medicare premiums that people don't normally think about.
So your whatever you report in your tax this year, like let's say 2020, is gonna affect your Medicare premium for 2021, right? Okay. So let's
Correct.
talk about this. I don't know. What is a SWOT analysis? How do you do a SWOT analysis on your finances, and what does SWOT mean? I know I had to ask you what that abbreviation mean.
Yeah. So this is part of what I do in my financial planning process. And actually kudos goes to Nick on some of this as well. Nick and I talked quite a bit, and we spent some time together actually working on what we call a one-page financial plan. And there's some other people that do something similar, but I think Nick and I have really developed something that's very unique, and different from what a lot of other people do. And so when I'm doing this SWOT analysis, SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so as I'm going through the financial planning process, then I want to identify what's in each of those categories. And usually there's a couple of strengths in there. It may be high income. It may you have a fully funded emergency fund. It may be that you're maxing out your 401k, whatever those are. But there's also going to be some weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So a weakness may be, you don't have estate planning document. So what happens to your family if you suddenly pass away? Opportunity could be, maybe you should refinance. Maybe your home mortgage is 4% and you can get sub 3 right now. So maybe that's
Hmm.
an opportunity. Threat may be, longevity of our life. Are you planning for living into your 90s or potentially 100 plus years old? And so
Hmm.
um, it's just a way for us to kind of top of mind keep track of some of those planning opportunities, and working on different scenarios and techniques, to
Hmm.
try to make sure that we have the most fulfilling retirement as possible.
So I did my retirement plan till 90. You said people
Okay.
are living longer now. Like, typically, what have you seen so far? Like, how old do people live by now? Women, is there a difference between women and men? Like, or
Yeah, I think if you look at the national average, it's usually like I think women are in like the 85 to 87 range, and men
okay.
are usually like 78 to 82 range. I don't really put a lot of stock into that. I would still rather plan for longer just in case. And the reason is because I've had multiple clients that are well into their 90s. I have a brother and sister who are clients. They're 104 years old. Actually, they both installed an indoor swimming pool into their houses. They live right next door. It's the cutest little, they're not a couple, they're brother and sister. But
Hmm.
they both installed these indoor swimming pools so that they can continue to get exercise at their
That's
house.
good.
Um,
Hmm.
and when you start doing things like that, you're going to increase your lifespan. Um, I have probably dozen clients that are very late 80s and even into their 90s. And
Hmm.
so, I would rather plan for 90, 95, or 100 than what actuaries say that, average life expectancy is.
Hmm. Got
And
it.
that's
Got it.
just because I've witnessed it from, personal clients.
So for you, how old did you plan your retirement planning till?
95 for me.
Okay, so maybe 90 is probably good,
Yeah.
the right age for
90,
you.
90 is probably good.
My family, they don't really, nobody in my family have lived, that long. So that's why, and I'm kind of okay with assisted suicide. Like, if I'm not functioning very well, like I'm just in my bed all day, like just take me. I'm pretty healthy and I try to be fit, but you just never know. Some things are just hereditary, and like I'm okay, like I don't want to spend the rest of my life in bed and just like waking up and then going to sleep. So yeah, so we'll
Certainly.
see. Huh?
Certainly. I agree.
Okay. All right. So, okay, I know you kind of mentioned already about HSA and Roth. Like, so I mean, okay, HSA kind of it's dependent on what your insurance is, right? Because I'm a self-employed, so I my health insurance right now, I usually pick the one with HSA, but the premium is more expensive with HSA, so I decided not to. So, and I'm kind of just doing Roth for now. So, like, is there anything else to consider about HSA and Roth? And usually, even with my clients, like if I kind of read through their benefits, I usually teach them what HSA is, and I feel like because HSA has high deductible, it's usually more it's usually for people who doesn't have a lot of health problems, because then if you go to the doctor a lot, you actually want the more lower deductible, right? Or HMO or something, you just pay copayment, because HSA is you have to pay the entire deductible right away. So for some it might not be worth it. So what are your opinions about that, like when to pick the one with HSA?
Yeah, I agree. I think you kind of hit the nail on
Mm-hmm.
the head. If
Mm-hmm.
you're healthy and you don't rely on doctor's visits or hospitals or medications, things like that, then HSA may be more beneficial to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you have health concerns or you're on medication or you see the doctor frequently,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, it may not make a lot of sense, and so you may want to choose a different option. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but you also want to see, you know, I'll give you an example. We have an HSA. I have a health condition. Surprisingly, though, there's a copay assist program for some medicine that I take. And
Okay.
that copay assist program, which is paid by a subsidiary of Pfizer, helps meet my deductible. And so I really don't pay any deductible out of pocket. And so I can still use the HSA. But if I wasn't getting that additional benefit from uh, it's called the Pfizer Bridge program, but it's kind of like a subsidy for that. If they weren't providing that, then an HSA would not make sense for me for the reasons you announced. It would be I would have to meet all the deductible, all the out of pocket, everything. And so I think it's just again a case by case scenario. But if you rely on a lot of doctor's visits and medicines and have health issues, then an HSA may not make sense for you.
Yep. So okay, so this thought just came to my mind. So when people like maybe go become 70 and 80, sometimes they might need to be in retirement homes, right? Or maybe assisted living. So like how do you plan for that? Like as part of the retirement planning.
Yeah, so I just plan it as part of people's plan to begin with. So I usually try to ask people, um, are you comfortable being on Medicaid where you deplete your assets and you don't
Yeah.
really have a whole lot of choice on where you go,
Mm-hmm.
or are you potentially going to move in with maybe a child or some other family member?
So before you proceed, can you explain what Medicaid is?
So Medicaid is a government health providing service for low income people. So you basically have to have no assets and very very low income. So most people don't qualify for Medicaid. They have too many assets. So in order to qualify, you would have to potentially sell your house, liquidate, pay for all the expenses first and get down to zero before the
Mm-hmm.
government would start paying. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so, if you don't have any money, they're this sounds terrible, but they're not just going to kill you. That doesn't work. So what happens is the government takes over and they start making your decisions and where you're going to go, and they pay your medical bills. But there's some cons, and that is you basically have no money. So you can't make a whole lot of decisions that
Yeah.
come with having money.
Yeah. And if you do have the money, like I think like then where do they end up going if they have the choice? So I guess it's gonna be in the mid assisted facility, right? I mean, like I don't know how much those cost and stuff like that, and how would you plan for the difference? Is it more costly towards the end of your life? Like assuming you're not gonna need Medicaid.
Yeah, it just depends. It depends on how um, if you need memory care, like if you have dementia or Alzheimer's, it costs substantially more. It could cost $7, 8, $9,000 a month
Yeah.
for that. If you just need assisted living, but you can be pretty much self-sufficient, but you just need a little bit of care,
Yeah.
you could probably get that for three to
Mm-hmm.
$5,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
well, normally what I do in retirement planning is I just have conversations about, do you want to go onto Medicaid? Do you want to potentially live with your children, or do you want to do some sort of planning So there's long-term care insurance, or they could potentially self-insure. So if they have enough money, then
Mhm.
they can just pay for
Mhm.
it out of pocket or
Mhm.
through their investments or Social Security or pension. So I have a lot of people that they don't need it. They have a big enough Social Security and a big enough pension that they can self-insure.
Mhm.
And I have others that don't want to be part of Medicaid, and they don't want to
Mhm.
feel like a burden to their children.
Mhm.
So, they may buy long-term care
Mhm.
insurance.
Mhm.
Um, but I try to plan for those scenarios for everybody, just so that there is, um, at least they can kind of visualize what if I do and what if I don't, and then they can make a decision.
Yeah. So what if like the assisted, so like you said, like dementia, if they have memory, then they might pay for something more costly. So in my case, if I have that problem, I'd rather just do assisted suicide. So what is what is a document called when you actually will allow, them to actually do that task? Because I mean, if you have memory loss, then you should probably write that when you're healthy, and then before that happens, right?
Yeah. So I don't. I could be wrong. I don't know of anywhere in the United States that offers that, but I don't know if you saw this. I think it was Spain
Mm.
just was voted on something that was allowing for assisted
Mm.
euthanasia,
Mhm.
where you could basically sign off saying,
Mhm.
it's my time, pull the plug,
Mhm.
essentially. Um,
Mhm.
if you have dementia care or Alzheimer's, something like that,
Mhm.
there's nothing in a document that says, I need assistance in you taking my life here. Um, you
You're
can,
stuck, you're stuck being sick then till you die. Well, that doesn't sound too fun. Like
yeah,
maybe
well,
I'll move to Spain.
well, and so that's the harder part, is that those people that have Alzheimer's and dementia don't even realize it. I mean,
Yeah.
they've literally lost their mind. And so
Yeah.
the bigger struggle is for the caregivers that are trying to care for them, because my grandmother, for example, she's 90 and she's
Yeah.
having some memory care issues. And the struggle on my mom is
Exactly.
magnified, because my
Yeah.
grandmother wakes up, she packs her bags, and she's ready to go home. Well, home has been with my mom for the last 10 years.
Mhm.
But she thinks that she was just spending the night. And
Mm.
so when you fight that every single day, it's a
Yeah.
whole emotional um,
Yeah.
thing that you have to overcome as the caregiver. So, if you want, you can start to, in your healthcare directives. So that's an estate planning document that says,
Mhm. Mhm.
if this happens, I want this done. Or if
Yep.
I'm on um, a feeding tube, or if I, what doctors will do in end of life is they're going to try to give you enough care and treatment to keep you alive as long as possible.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, as you mentioned, some people may not want to live that way. And so what
Exactly.
they can do is in this healthcare directive say,
Mhm.
um, I want this person to make decisions for me, but here's a couple of the decisions I've already made. I don't want
Mm.
to be on a feeding tube. I don't want, extensive care for end of life. I don't want XYZ things. And so that, you know, you're kind of making the decision. And so either the doctors aren't having to, or your loved ones aren't having to. But, it probably not going to apply as much in, again, the Alzheimer's or dementia, because they just don't have,
Mhm.
um, the assisted,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't surprise me at some point in the future if that is
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, so that is part of estate planning. Like, assuming you're not married, then you do want to have the healthcare directive and everything. So you list down, what you're. But then, like, if you're married, so the partner, husband, or the wife usually has the power to actually make those decisions.
Yeah. So for in my family, my wife has the power over me if something happens to me, and I have the power over her. And then we have secondary. So her
Mm-hmm.
secondary is her brother. My secondary is my sister. And so it doesn't have to be the same person.
Oh, that's in your estate planning, or you're just talking about the legal rights generally, even without the estate planning? Of course, the husband or the wife usually has that power anyway.
No. So if you don't have the estate planning, then it
Mhm.
goes to the court and they decide some of those things. So,
Mm.
and it usually ends up being the closest kin person. So
Oh, got it.
if you do the estate planning, then you get to name who makes those decisions. So personally, in my situation, it's my wife and then it's my sister. For my wife, it's me and then her brother.
Mhm.
Um, so, and that's
Yep.
another reason why you want to do the estate planning. You want to be able to say who's making the decisions.
Exactly. Estate planning is important. Okay. So now let's talk about before we end, it's almost to the hour. So why don't we talk about share about your LinkedIn? Why are you on LinkedIn? How has LinkedIn benefited you? And then like you seem pretty to be utilizing social media pretty well, like podcasting, all of this. So just tell us more about your social media, like how you're utilizing social media for marketing and how you're utilizing LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I just use LinkedIn as a way. A lot of advisors publish content that is created by some outside person,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not authentic. And so,
Exactly. Yeah.
what I wanted to do was
Mm-hmm.
use LinkedIn and social media to be a further extension of my authentic voice. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
already doing that with the podcast. I do that with my blog. I do that with my book. I do that with some videos. But now I can use LinkedIn to use the space to what I normally do is attach a picture and then make some comments about what I did in the picture. And so it's just a way for me to have kind of an authentic space to talk about Roths or HSAs or end of the year tax
Mm-hmm.
planning. I did one yesterday that was kind of a mini checklist about um, making sure that you max out your 401k if you haven't. See if there's any tax loss harvesting that you can do. And so just try to be authentic and different.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I love what you do. Like people know you, and then like I think someone actually recommended you. That's why I reach out to you. So it's like, see, it's a small world. So everyone utilize social media. I mean, I utilized it so much last year, but I kind of took a break since I moved to Vegas, and I'm only showing up on LinkedIn Live nowadays. But I'm gonna try to get back into it again. But I do love it. It's about you have to find your voice, your authenticity. Like, what are you good at, and not try to copy people. I do see a lot of people copying different people's styles, but it's not you. That's not who you are. So you need to figure out who you are, what speaks to you, what you're good at, what kind of content time speaks to you, and then just show up. And then I think like you provide value to people, people find value, eventually you are going to build that. So you need to have confidence in that one. So awesome. So Jonathan, how can people find you?
So my website is paradigmwealthpartners.com, PARADIGM. You can find me on LinkedIn at jbednarii. So linkedin.com, I think /jbednarii. You can find me on Twitter, jbednarii. I'm Jonathan Bednar the second. But instead of having the number 2, I use Roman numeral and they lowercase them. So it's II. Um, and yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can follow me on Twitter and see my content. And I interact with a lot of people back and forth. So, if you interact with me or you're posting content, and I see it, I'll definitely be able to interact with you back.
Yeah, I'll definitely tag you in our live so you can share that, and then like I will try to convert this videos into a podcast. And everyone doesn't know my podcast is Life and Money with Christine Tay. I think I'm the only Christine Tay probably on iTunes, so it's not very popular last name. So anyway, Jonathan, thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate this. All the information you provided. So thank you for coming on the weekend, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And then thank you everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine, for
Yeah,
having me.
you're very welcome. Bye bye.
Bye bye.